In lesson 6.4, solving two-step equations, we're going to continue on with 7.EE.4a. And our essential question is, how do you solve a two-step equation? So we're really building on the work in 6.3. So the items that we're going to work on, some key understandings, is isolating the variable means getting the variable alone in one side of the equation. To maintain equality, the operation must be applied to both sides of the equation. Equations with negative numbers are solved in the same way as equations with positive numbers. And when solving a two-step equation, the inverse operations are applied in the opposite order from the order used when simplifying an expression. First, addition or subtraction, then multiplication or division. So really it's the opposite of what you've learned for order of operations or PEMDAS. In PEMDAS you do parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract. So now what we're saying is we're going to go the opposite direction. You'll look for add and subtracts first, then do multiply and divide. So in this first example, they have us modeling and solve 3n plus 2 equals 11. So to model it is what they have showing right here, okay? So they have this is your n's right there, so there's 3 of them. This is the 2, okay, and just by having them in the box is your plus, okay, and it's an addition or a positive, so that's why you have positives here. If they were negatives, you would have a negative sign in front of it. Remember, the bar is the equal sign, and then you have 11 right here, okay. So now they show you that you can remove, since you have 2 positives on this side and 2 positives on that side, you can go ahead and remove them. The other way to think about them, if you remember, is 0 pairs, okay? So that's positive. Now a 0 pair, you would have a negative, and they cross out, all right? So 0 pair. We're still going to use that. And I think that's going to help you out more than just showing you taking these 2 away. So if you have, you put in 2 negatives here, and you also put in 2 negatives here, because you remember you have to keep balance on the equation. What you do on one side, you have to do on the other. Then they cancel out, and these cancel out. There's a positive and a negative cancel out. They make 0, okay? So then you reduce down to where you have 3 n's equals, then you have 9 over here is the total. So what they're asking you is, can you group that? Okay, so you have 1 n is equal to 3. Okay, 1 n is equal to 3, 1 n is equal to 3. So then n, 1 n, remember the number 1 is actually in front of that, is equal to 3. From question 1 in the your turn, I've redrawn this. 2x plus 5 equals 11. So I want to show you the equation way that we've been working on in class, and I'm also going to show you the modeling way that they've just showed you with the algebra tiles. So if I create 2 x's, okay, so my rectangle is, and it's positive, and then 5 equals 11. So I've modeled now 2x plus 5, because equals 11, and these are all positive. I'm going to stick with the 0 pairs. And remember, the goal is to isolate the variables. So I got to isolate the x's here by themselves. So I have to get rid of my constants. And so if you remember, it talks about doing addition, subtraction first. So I have my additions right here. So I'm going to put in 5 negatives so I can create 0 pairs. And then I'm going to cross those out because I created 0 pairs. Okay. But what I do on one side, I have to do on the other side. So I have to put in my 5 negatives over here, and then I cross 0 pairs out. So now I'm left with positive x, because the rectangle represents x, and I'm left with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 positives on this side. And if I go ahead and I group these, 1x is equal to 3. Okay, so x equals 3. So now if I go ahead and do that over here with the equation, we'll see the same thing. I'm going to subtract 5. Okay, so I subtract 5, positive 5, so I subtract 5, that gives me 0. I bring down my 2x plus 0, draw my line, equal. What I did over here, I have to do over here. So I subtract 5 on that side. 11 minus 5 is equal to 6. So I now have 2x plus 0, which would be 0 plus anything, gives me the same. So 2x equals 6. And now I look for the grouping part. So this is multiplication. So the opposite of multiplication is division. So I divide out by 2. I divide out by 2, keeping balance. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. So I have x. I have 1x equals 6 divided by 2 is 3. So 1x is equal to 3. So x equals 3. Okay, for looking at question 4 in the same your turn, I've modeled both of these. I've rewritten the equation here, and I've modeled the algebra tiles here. Negative 4 plus 2 equals negative 2. So starting with the equation, I have a positive 2 I have to get rid of, so I'm going to subtract 2. Okay, so that gives me 0. Do the algebra tiles at the same time. So I have to get rid of 2 over here. Okay, so we've created 0 pairs. So that's 1 pair, that's 2 pair. But what I do on one side of the equation, I have to do on the other side. So I have to put in here. But now remember, this is a negative, that's a negative, that's a negative, that's a negative. So we've not created 0 pairs to cancel anything out. So we're now left with negative 4. Over here, negative 2 minus 2 is negative 4. Okay, so that goes back to the integer rules that we still need to work on in our class. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring down my negative 4y. So negative 4y plus 0. Okay, so that's going to be negative 4y equals negative 4. Okay, and over here, there's our negative 4y. Okay, equals, so negative 4y's, because these are our y's, and these are our individuals, negative 4. Okay, so if you group those, so y is going to equal 1. Over here, the math that we're going to do is we're going to go divide by negative 4. We divide by negative 4. Okay, so this is, they cancel out, which is 1. So 1y equals 4 divided by 4 is 1, and a negative divided by a negative is positive. So 1y is going to equal 1, or y equals 1. In example 2, they give us a word problem to work with. They go through all the steps that you can use. A dog sled driver added more gear to the sled, doubling its weight. So that means that's 2, okay, 2 times. This felt too heavy, so the driver removed 20 pounds. So that's going to be subtract 20. Hope you can see that over here. And to reach the final weight of 180. So that means it's going to equal 180, okay? Write and solve the equation. So 2 pieces there that you have to deal with. You have to write the equation. You have to solve the equation. Okay, so they've started it out 2 times whatever the weight is, because that's where he doubled it. He subtracted the 20 pounds, and the total then is 180. So remember what I said before, write what you see. Okay, so doubled its weight, removed 20 pounds, total, reached the final weight, okay, final weight of 180. And you can see the steps that they go through, which is what we've already done. Number 7, 5 less than the quotient of a number and 4 is 15. What is that number? So 5 less, okay, than the quotient of a number and 4 is 15. Okay, so a couple pieces to look out here. Quotient means to divide. Okay, so a number, so we're going to use n because we use the first letter, and 4. So n divided by 4, or we can write that as n over 4. 5 less than that quotient, so we subtract 5, is 15. Okay, so here's the pieces. This is the is, this is the less here. Quotient is that. Okay, so quotient is that. Number and 4. So write what you see. Here in example 3, we have to convert a temperature from degrees Fahrenheit to degrees Celsius. First subtract 32. Okay, so we're talking about whatever your temperature is, x minus 32. Okay, then multiply that result by 5/9. So they have that right here. x minus 32 times 5 ninths. And they're telling you an outdoor thermometer showed a temperature of minus 10 degrees Celsius. So this is the Celsius right here, okay? This piece here. So x here is the Fahrenheit. So if you're given, you're going from degrees Fahrenheit to Celsius, okay? So they told us that we saw this in Celsius. So now what we have to do is we're going to use the two-step. Okay, so I've rewritten the equation here so I can work with it a little bit. And they'll be the same steps, but I'll explain a couple pieces here. So in these parentheses, okay, we have x minus 2. So what I've done is I've kind of trying to get you to understand this idea. So 5 ninths, it's times whatever's going on in the parentheses, okay? So I want to label that as A over here, okay? So x minus 2 is A. And if I rewrite that, then I have 5 ninths times A. So what is the opposite of multiplication? Well, the opposite of multiplication is division. So if I divide this by 5 ninths, okay, we now have a complex fraction. I have 5 ninths divided by 5 ninths. So this would be no different like if I had, say, 6 divided by 6. That cancels out to 1. So this cancels out to 1, and I'm left with 1A. So if I take this and I divide by 5 ninths, this cancels out, okay? But remember, what I do on this side, I have to do on this side. So now I have this is divided by 5 ninths. So I'm left with x minus 32 on this side. But over here, I got to do some work. I got to do the negative 10 divided by 5 ninths. So I'm going to rewrite it, negative 10 over 1 divided by 5 ninths. Remember, I do my KFC. I'm going to keep this, negative 10 over 1 times, and I'm going to invert this. I'm going to change it over to 9 over 5. Okay? So now I can go ahead and multiply straight across. So that's going to equal to negative 90 over 5. Because negative 10 times a positive 9 is negative 90. And then 5 goes into 90 how many times? 5 goes into 9 once, and I'm left with 4. So that's 40 now. Okay, I have 40 there. So 5 goes into 40 8 times. And remember your negative, so it's negative. So what I have now is I have negative 18 equals x minus 32. What I just did was I showed you all of the steps that they did here, okay, and what they came up with. I think you'll see the inversion going on this side. It's not as clear cut over here, okay, because I showed you a slightly different way, but we still end up with negative 18 equals x minus 32. They then go ahead and we are isolating the variable, so we're going to, we have a subtract 32, so we're going to add 32 on this side. So what we do on one side, we do on the other. So we're going to add 32 here. We go ahead and do the math. You know, that would be 0, of course. So x is going to equal 14. So for a temperature of negative 10 degrees Celsius, it is equivalent to 14 degrees Fahrenheit. So in B, an airplane flies at an altitude of 38,000 feet. So that's where it's starting at. Okay, so that's we're at 38,000. As it nears the airport, the plane begins to descend at the rate of 600 feet per minute. So descends means to go down. Okay, so descend means to go down. At this rate, how many minutes, okay, so how many minutes will the plane take to descend to 18,800 feet? So we have to write an equation. Okay, they're telling you what let m represents is the number of minutes. So we started at 38,000. It descends, so goes down 600 feet per minute. So that's what the m is. And you're going to finish at 18,800 feet. So you can see the steps here of using two-steps equations to solve, and they'll tell you that the plane will take 32 minutes to descend to 18,000 feet at a rate of 600 feet per minute. You can do number 8 because you already have an example for that one. Number 9, Jenny earned 92 of a possible 120 points on a test. She lost 4 points for each incorrect answer. How many incorrect answers does she have? Well, if she lost 4 points for each one, Okay, so let's say we're going to use A for answer, and it's lost 4, so lost is going to be a negative, and it's going to be 4 points for each answer. So negative 4A. She started at 120, so 120. She loses for each question minus 4A, and she earned a total of, so that's where she's going to be at 92 total. So 120, because that's where she started, minus 4 points for each incorrect answer, and she earned a total of 92. So how many incorrect answers did she have? You can go ahead and use the two-step process to solve that answer. Wrap up, you have the guided practice. They go ahead and they model. You have 2x. You have the 2x here. So there's your 2x plus 1. That's your 1, and it's a positive, so plus 1 equals, and then you got 9 over here. So to solve the equation with algebra tiles, first remove, what do you remove? Okay? Always start with your constants. Then divide each side by your coefficients. And then that'll tell you what x is. So I hope this all helps, and have a good